I have a second degree in brain and behavior, and I've been a professional poker player for, I believe I have been for about 4 years or so. That was my occupation at the time. At the moment, well, I moved on to training more and more so poker. And that's more or less about me, I guess. If you have, if you have any questions about, about what I do, whatever, and maybe feel free to talk to me about it after the lesson. Okay, so let's anything before we get started? I'll just, in case anyone doesn't know how it works, I'll just explain how, beside, what's, how we're doing things. So basically, I'm going to start the round, okay, and you're going to play. And whenever you fold your hand, then you get to see what everyone else has. So basically, just don't actually see what everyone else has. You can fold it, and after the round ends, and if there's anything interesting to talk about, then I'll replay the hand, and I'll ask you, why I did things, and give you my input, basically. Okay, so let's get it on. I'm not sure if Tal is with us, or if he's thinking, or has a good play so far. Tal, if you're there, let me know. Let's see what happened in his hand. So Tal has pocket tens. But if anyone has any seeing what's happening, then let me know. But we're just going over the hand. I try not to talk during the hand itself, but after the hand, I get to give you my analysis. So if Tal opens to 3 times the big one, that's fine. One makes a call with 4-5 suited. from the dealer from the button. That's kind of a loose score. Usually, I mean, it's normally okay to defend from the button with, like, variety of hands, but against like, someone from early position, someone that often Tal is considered to be in early position. He's under the gun, actually. That's his position. So against that, you should aim to be calling or raising with better hands. And 4-5 suited just isn't so good, especially not against a single player. So anyway, one calls, Jack calls it, which is fine. And the flop gives basically Jack has a flash draw, one has an open-ended straight draw. So she either deuce or 7 would give her straight. And Tal just for now has the best hand, but it is kind of tricky to play. So Jack does check, which is fine, allowing Tal, he was originally raised to make a bet, and Tal does make a bet here. So I think it's in the betting is fine anyway, because I mean, it's very likely that someone has a queen. So Tal most likely has the best hand right now, and so he should bet and try and pick up the pot.
I was kind of wondering about the sizing of the bet. It's kind of
Yes.
It's like 1/3 the size of the pot in a multi-way pot.
Yeah, but that's not good. Yes, you're correct. So it's a multi-way pot. You need to. I mean, it's kind of dry board because there's a queen and like a 2 low card. It's 2, so there's a possibility of someone having a flash draw. So it is kind of dry, not very dry. So you could bet normally. However, well, it's multi-way pot, then you do need to increase your bet sizing. So that, because otherwise people could just randomly call you and be giving like there are more people involved in the hand. So you need to bet bigger, basically size wide, and that means that you need to not bet as often. So yeah, I would probably make it like something like 12, I guess. 7 is definitely too small. Obviously, both of you call because you have a draw. The ace falls, and now Tal has an option. Again, he could decide to bet the ace, or he could check. So I think both would be fine in this case. The reason is that Tal does represent the ace. He has he's the one that opened from under the gun. So he has he could have like any suited ace. He could have ace king, ace queen, ace jack. So and so he has this ace is good for Tal's range. That's the possibility of hands he could have. But he doesn't need to represent an ace because his hand is likely still, I mean, it's possible, but it's still good anyway. So he could just check it down and hopefully win the hand anyway. So either route is fine.
Yeah, an overcard on the turn is a perfect double barrel card for under the gun open.
Yeah, that's right. So especially an ace, of course. So I mean, not betting ace kind of could indicate that maybe he had an ace queen, so now he has 2 turn, and he's like, I don't know, he's afraid to overplay or whatever. Normally, I mean, regardless, checking or betting is fine in this spot. I think it was fine. Checking it down, and then Moran hits it on the river with a deuce. So she's trying to squeeze some value. I think the sizing is fine. I don't think that considering how it was checked around, someone could possibly call a bigger bet. Like if someone could call a bet, larger than 25, then someone would already make a bet himself. So I think the sizing was fine, whatever. But I wouldn't call it. Any questions regarding this hand? No. Okay. Yeah, that's a crazy hand. Let's go over it quickly, okay? So one opens the 3x. Hold on, let's see. Yeah. Okay, so one opens the 3x and Meg decides to make a raise from the button, which is
Yeah,
totally
I think she would have folded the eights on a 3-bet typically.
I don't know about that. I mean, depends on the person. Usually, like pocket eight is kind of a pretty strong part of your range when you're opening from the cutoff. So would normally be, depends on, of course, on who you're playing or what. But anyway, it was a fine raise, so there's no problem with that. You could raise, you could call. Jack and Tal fold, and Moran decides to make a call out of position. That kind of depends. I mean, if it's a kind of risky to be calling out of position. Calling out of position, in case you know, means that someone makes a raise and you decide to make a call, and for the rest of the hand, you'll be the first to make a decision, betting decision. Okay, so normally you could do that if you know that if you're comfortable playing against that player. But if you're out of your depth, if you feel that person would be better, if you're not sure or if you're not sure, like how that person plays or whatever, so it's kind of risky to be doing that.
I should have tried controlling pot instead of betting into it since the player on the board.
Well, let's get to that.
I should have sniffed out the full house before I got all my chips in.
Well, we'll see. I mean, anyway, I guess you could call. You could make a re-raise with your eights. It's fine, I think. So kind of between flop from one, she has a vote on the flop. That means the full house, and Mac, you have 2 overcards and a gut shot. So even though the board is spread, usually it's a 3-bet pot, you shouldn't be concerned. One checks to you, and you make a continuation bet. Regarding the sizing, I would like to say, this is considered to be a 3-bet pot. What does it mean? It means that someone made a 3-bet, somebody raised someone else before the flop. That's considered to be a 3-bet. And this is a 3-bet pot. Okay. Now, a 3-bet pot, you don't need, normally when you make a continuation bet, when you are the original raiser, and you make a continuation bet, then you need to take into adjustment, you need to consider the pattern of the board, the texture. Like if it's dry, if it's dry, you bet smaller. If it's wet, you bet larger. If more people, you bet more, you bet bigger. That's usually how you do that. But when you're playing a 3-bet pot, things are a lot simpler because you don't actually need to bet. You don't ever need to bet more than half a pot to get all your money in. If you started 100 big blinds deep, so basically betting half a pot is just enough. So there's never any reason to bet more than that. So
that makes sense. That's good.
Yeah. So just the sizing was slightly too big. So I would. Also, you could. I mean, it's okay to slightly take things like the board texture or something into consideration, but just to make it closer to half pot. Yeah, someone calls, obviously raising at this spot is suicidal. Normally, I don't advocate for slow playing your hand. When you have a good hand, then you need to play and guns blazing. You go for a check raise and you put the money in and game. But this is the one exception. So when you have both on the flop, kind of hard for the other person to have something that could withstand, that would stay around after you check raise. Okay, unless that other person, that your opponent considers you to be like full of shit. So like I would say definitely you need to just check call in this scenario. Okay, so normally when you have a good hand, you go for check raise. Okay, when you're not the original raiser. When you don't have when you're not the aggressor, when you're not the one to make the betting. But in this case, well, I mean, and if you are out of position, you should check raise. But in this case, check calling is fine. And now the turn card is just perfect for Moran because Mac now has a straight, and you know, Moran has a boat again, so it doesn't matter. And yeah, so Moran checks and Mac bets again. Again, this is important, okay, because sizings are extremely important. Note that this was way too big. The pot size is 89. You're betting 65, so if Moran would call you, you would have 91 behind, okay, and the pot would be like 210 or something like that, right? So you have less than half behind to bet on the river. That makes the river play to be meaningless.
Yeah, I recognize. As soon as I bet that, I recognize that. So moving forward, that's a really good note. Yeah, I learned something for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So like, if you're already here in this spot and you decide to make a bet, you should make it something reasonable that would leave, let's say, you would leave with slightly less than pot size on the river. Let's say 90% pot size. You can make like doesn't need to be exact, but you know, roughly making sure that you could make a reasonable bet on the river. Otherwise, it's like you're already ending the game at this point. And yeah, and sure, once Moran does put you in, you have absolutely no choice. You need to call her. You can't outsmart yourself and fold straight at this spot, fearing a full house. No, I mean, she could easily have the same hand as you. She could have an ace 10. I don't know. She could have a jack and anything. So yeah, you just call and that's and you if she has it, she has it. Okay, any questions about this hand? Okay, so let's move on.
I clicked and nothing happened. I refresh the window.
Wait, are you refreshing the window now?
Oh yes, because I clicked and nothing happened.
Okay. So as long as you're in game now, so it's fine.
Yes.
Okay, so let's. I have several issues with where his hand was played because some of it was played pretty well and other things less so. Let's start from the pre-flop. I normally, of course, it depends on the type of player, the type of game. Normally, mostly people open to. Okay. However, some adjustments sometimes are made, not necessarily, but from the button, I often like opening to 2.5 times the big blind. So instead of opening to 6, I would open to 5 from the button. Others would even open to 4. But anyway, 7 is just too big sizing for the button. Like you could do 7 from under the gun. You could do like 7 is 3.5 times the big blind. So you could do it from under the gun, but from the button, I don't think. I think it's just too big, the sizing.
One of the reasons it's good to bet 2.5 on the blind is so you can call a 3-bet if somebody's trying to defend their the blind steal, because it's a lower number.
I'm sorry, you said betting what now?
So when you're opening from the button, it's
from button.
Yeah, it's open at 2.5 the big blinds, because if somebody decides to defend the steal from the blinds and they 3-bet, it's easier to call a 3-bet because it's going to be smaller.
Yeah, basically for many reasons for that. Like if so, you could basically defend yourself against the aggressors trying to defend against the big blind, against the blind's defense. Or you could it basically allows you to open more hands. The play better, the more hands you can play. So if you're opening to 7 from the button, you're forced to play to not play like some hands that you could have once. Anyway, let's move on. So Tal calls and Eyal makes defense. I think it's not a good. I wouldn't call here. I don't think the hand is good enough to call. Always when you decide to make to defend, when you're calling someone, you need to take into account the sizing as well. So like 7-9 suited is not so good. You might be. I mean, you could call maybe if someone open to to 4 to 2 times the big blind. I guess it's fine, but I wouldn't even call it if he opened to 5. I wouldn't call certainly not to an opening of 7. So just take into account the sizing of your opponent as well when you're making when you're deciding to defend. Okay, so and when the flop comes, Eyal has a bottom pair and a flash draw, and Jack has a backdoor flash draw. That's basically it. So Eyal checks to the original razor to Jack, and Jack makes a continuation bet. I think it's a good one. The sizing is fine, in my opinion. Also, I don't make a continuation bet when I have absolutely nothing. So like if the 7 was well, basically anything else, I wouldn't make this continuation bet. But since the 7 is diamonds, then Jack could continue betting on any diamond on the turn. So that gives him more equity, more yeah. So that's enough to make a continuation bet. Anyway, Eyal calls, which is fine. And many people check raise here. This spot is a mistake. Eyal does have a lot of equity in his hand. He has a flash draw and a bottom pair. So he has, even if he's behind, he has many outs. The thing is, he does have a low pair. So he could just start off by playing his hand as a bluff catcher. So, and which he did, which is awesome. And so there's no need to to move on and push your flash draw and say, yeah, I have a draw, I need to play it aggressively. That's not the case, because you also have a pair. So playing it as if it was a small pair is better, I think. Anyway, Eyal calls a 6 on the turn, and Jack makes another a continuation bet on the turn. I think it's a bad one. I don't see any reason to continue betting here. It's not like I mean, you haven't improved, and I mean, when you're betting the flop, your plan should be only diamond, and that's basically it, I think. I mean, if a queen comes on the turn, or that's fine. I mean, you're happy, but and you're settling a betting was changed. Is 8 king 7 on the flop, and the board is now ace king 7 6. So nothing has changed as far as he's concerned. He shouldn't be concerned if it's likely good enough to continue calling on the turn as well. Just not a good spot to bluff. Okay. And then I don't quite understand. Maybe Zara, you can explain why you made this bet, because it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, in second thought, I would check here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the better move.
Yeah, just you see, your hand is
Only
there.
with better end we will call or raise mirror. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the only possible reason I could see, the only possible rationale to be betting here is if you think that you could make him fold an ace, because you're obviously trying to
yeah,
bluff him.
that was my thought. That maybe
Yeah,
he's running with SI and then he'll check and I lose and I try
don't.
to.
Yeah, okay. So don't try and bluff people out of good hands. Okay.
Yeah,
Don't try. So if you think your opponent, don't plan around someone as having a better hand than you, and then make him fold that hand. Many, like, you have no idea how much money you're going to lose with this kind of mindset. Okay.
yeah.
People don't like if someone has an ace on the button, he's gonna mash the call button so quickly, you have no idea. Okay, so
Yeah. I know.
yeah, and if he has a queen deuce, he's gonna fold. Actually, have a 7.
Yes.
So yeah. Okay, so any questions about this hand? Okay, let's go on. Okay, let's check the hand. Opening from Tal. Um, I personally don't like ever calling from the small blind. My strategy, which I mean, if I get to go over my strategy, or I'll tell you about that part as well. But for now, I'll just say that I just play from the small blind, 3-bet fold kind of strategy. So I never call. Having said that, if I did call, then ace-8 is a fine hand to call. And some other players do, professional players do call from the small blind. So it's not a mistake, just not my style. is not good enough to be flat in here as well, even though like the okay and you have position against his arm, still just bad hand, you should fall. So it's a trash hand. So the flop comes pretty dry. He's out checks, and Michael bets. So normally, the best thing to do is to check to the original raiser. To in this case, for Vital, that is the original raiser. He made the raise before the flop, and Michael called him. So and betting into the original raiser is considered donk bet. Donk bet. But when it's moving heads, when it's not heads up, when there are several players inside the pot, and it's completely fine because it's likely that the talent would opt to make a continuation bet in three-way pot rather than in heads up. So Michael could make a play here, definitely. Certainly, since he has a gut shot, so a 6 would give him a straight. So he could make a move. I think it's fine.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
One way that I've learned that you can defend from the big blind, and I thought he was going to do this, was, and that would have been a good board to do it, would be to, of course, obviously in hindsight, the button has a queen, but to actually have check raised that board from the big blind is a defense if you're trying to defend your blinds.
Yeah, I think both would be fine. Check raise.
Certainly not a donk bet there.
Well, I mean, you could donk bet in three-way pot. You could donk bet, you could check raise. Donk represents a smaller hand, a weaker hand. So if he went for check raise, he's kind of representing a set.
Right.
Mostly like a pocket threes, pocket fours, perhaps maybe a 5-6 or something like that. But but not, when you donk, when you don't represent these kind of hands, usually when you're donking, you're representing something like maybe like a queen with a bad kicker, or maybe I don't know, pocket sixes or something like that. So and he's just betting because he's afraid Tal check it back, and he wants to get some value and small protection for his pocket sixes or whatever. So I think donking has its merits in three-way pot. I would make it slightly bigger though. I mean, it is like a very dry board. So normally if it was heads up, you could even go as low as betting even third pot, I think. In three-way, I would opt to make it slightly more than half low. I mean, it's not bad. Just I think you could do slightly bigger. Anyway, of course, obviously he's calling, he's not going to raise, and he's not going to fall. And there is upwards, which is very good. So regarding the king, now usually an overcard is a good hand, is a good card to continue betting on. Not sure, kind of sending confusing signals here, I think, because I mean you donked the flop, you made a bet on the flop on queen 4-3 rainbow, so you don't have flash draws, could have, I guess, open-ended or a gut shot like you do, but mostly just a bad queen, I guess. And it was kind of a small bet also. So now you continue betting on the king. Not sure, like if Tal, let's say, has even pocket jacks or something like that, kind of hard for you to fold in this spot, because you're not. I mean, if you had the queen, why would you continue betting when the king falls on the turn? I don't know. Kind of weird move. I see. So Michael says that the game, he had he couldn't see the pot until he made the bet, so it's fine. Okay, yeah, regarding the bet on the flop. Okay, so I would probably just check the turn on the king, because I don't think I think you could get through the card anyway, because I don't think the king hit Tal either, and but he's not going to be afraid of a king necessarily. Ace is another thing entirely. If it was an ace on the turn, then yeah, definitely bet it, but not a king. I think anyway. So yeah, Tal calls of course, and Yeah, I think it's a good give up on the river. Yeah, and I think Tal's bet on the river was very good. By the way, and I'll explain why. The thing is, I mean, obviously he's trying to squeeze as much value as he could, as he can from his trips, trip wins. So he's just trying to figure out how big he could make the bet and still get called by Michael most of the time. And Michael did bet the flop and the turn, okay, and kind of stopped on the river. So he could have a king. Okay, he could have a king. So if he has a king, then there's no way he's going to fall for it to this kind of bet. And so it's kind of a gambit, but it's a good one, I think, because like if Michael, let's say, has, I don't know, let's say he has pocket sixes or something, and, you know, you need to, even if Tal suspects that Michael would have pocket sixes, even he could make the bet like, I don't know, 27 or something like that. But if he had pocket sixes, then he probably wouldn't, like Michael probably wouldn't bet the king. So, and since he did bet the king, that makes it more likely, I don't know, he has something better. Maybe he bluffed on the flop and then he hit the king or whatever. So yeah, I think it's a good bet. Any questions? Okay, let's move on. I would just want to, yeah, well, I probably wouldn't open this. I open a lot of hands from the button and the small blind, but I I guess, you know, you could just fold like the really really shitty hands. So I guess it works. Yeah, what would you mean by two? Okay, well, it's not necessarily a mistake. Yeah. UW bet. Okay, yeah, it's not necessarily a mistake, but I don't like opening, you know, really bad hands from the button and small blind. Yeah, you certainly did 100% profit. That's true. Okay. All right. So a couple of things. First of all, you know, calling.
Misclick.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Just but in general, just in case it wasn't clear, when calling the big blind and instead of raising is called limping. Limping to report, that's not good. But it is important to know how to face limps. So it was actually a good practice because a lot of people do limp. We do call the big blind, and then they allow you to, you know, crash the limpers, raise the limpers. Many terms for that. So, but then the question is, you know, what terms are we going to do that, and what size? And I think this hand was actually pretty perfect for this scenario because first of all, Michael had he had 2-4 suited. So many people, many even professional players would think, yeah, it's a good chance. I'm gonna raise. I have a button, I have position, I have a suited hand. I'm gonna raise the limpers. But actually, I think folding was far superior. The fact is that when someone limps, usually, of course, in this case, it was just a mistake. But usually that means that it's not a strong player. Yeah, yeah, I know you did. I know you wanted to raise. So, but usually when someone just limps into the pot, it's very likely not a strong player. And when you're playing not strong players, then what you want to have is big cards in your hand. That means that when you're playing against casual players, you want to have a hand like King Jack, even if it's offsuit, is perfect. It's really good, high cards. You're gonna raise, they're gonna call you, you're gonna hit a king or a jack, you're gonna have a top pair, you're gonna make some money. That's awesome. Okay. While when you're playing against like good players, even having like a sneaky hand like a 2-4 suited, could sometimes earn you a lot of money. You could hit like a hidden straight, could hit like a baby flush, and you know get some money from a professional. But just you need to think about adjusting your hand to the player you're playing against. So for is not a hand you want a crashing limpers with. Okay, and so I think it's very good that you folded. One, this Jack 8 suited, of course, is good to raise in this spot. And she did raise. So how big should you do it? That depends on how big you're about. Let's say everybody folded after one, and she decided to make a bet. Okay, so when it's likely that she would raise to 6 in this scenario. She could do 5 or 6. Right? Because that's how we usually do, like 6 from everyone, maybe 5 from the bottom, and maybe 5 or 6 from the small blind. So you raise to a normal amount, and then you add on top of it the limp. Okay, so let's say Muan was planning to raise to 6 when it got to her. She should do 8 now, because there's already $2 in the pot. Let's say a couple of limpers before. Let's say Jack limps, Tal limps, Izhar limps. Okay, already $6 in the pot. She was about to make with a bet to 6, and then she should make it to 12. She should make it 12, because you add to whatever you intended to bet. On top of that, the limp amount. Okay, do you understand what I mean? Okay, so awesome. Cool. Let's move on then. Okay, so kind of a missed opportunity. You need to don't. I don't know. I actually didn't see how much you usually bet, but don't adjust your bet sizing to your hand. Okay, unless you're like playing against people who are completely clueless. Okay, but normally you're kind of telling everyone what you have. So just decide on the bet sizing, and you should bet according to your position, and not according to your hand. So if you always want to bet 6 or 3 times the big blind, that's fine. And if you want to like make it slightly bigger from maybe slightly smaller from the button, that's also fine. But if you just decide, if you randomly just bet bigger, then people would just know you have a good hand. In this case, you didn't actually have anything to play against you, but you could just run your good hand in this way. Okay. Okay, so still waiting for it to allow me to replay the hand. Was some delay. Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, so I guess you won't just playing, you're not just opening your good hands to be some sizing, you do it basically to every hand. I would think it's too big. You shouldn't open this hand anyway. Then let me show you quickly what type of hands I would open. You're in a position, this is the hijack, okay? Because you have 1, 2, 3, 4 active players after you. So that's one position after under the gun. Okay, so I would open from the hijack something like this. Oops. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, basically, like, you could add like oversuited aces if you want, I guess. But, like ace 9 suited better, ace 10 offsuit, any pocket pair, like most of the board ways, not including queen jack offsuit. So that's a pretty tight range. It's because you're under the gun, you're in the hijack. So 4 players after you, every one of them can show up with a hand. It's just you need to be more careful here, especially if you're betting. So if you're going to make like four times the big blind kind of bet, then you need to start playing even less hands than the ones I show here. Okay, so otherwise you're just kind of you're opening yourself to losing money in just opening yourself to being in bad situations. Okay, like with inferior hand against someone in very hard spots. Okay, so normally just I would say just open to 6 and that's it. Just open to 6 and don't open to 8. Okay. Okay, so Tad decides to call, kind of loose call, but I can see why you didn't want to fold the queen 10 suited, and it was okay, I guess. Okay, the flop comes, Tad makes a check because he is out, because Michael is the originator, and then Michael makes a bet. So the sizing not good. Okay, this is a dry board, very dry. Okay, it's queen 5 deuce rainbow. So like I would bet like 6, I guess. Yeah, like something like that. Like I guess would be fine. It's certainly not like it is, because with this, the smaller the bet should be. Okay, in normal pots, not in free bet pots. In normal pots, you need to just adjust your sizing. You should almost never bet that big. I mean, it's rare for the board to be that, but you could just bet almost full pot. Okay, so anyway, well, and the backdoor, so he's not going anywhere. He decides to call. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, a 9 comes on the turn, doesn't change much. No, it's a card, Okay, so Tal checks and then Michael checks. So because he had nothing and he gave up basically, and then it's an ace on the ribbon. So in this spot, Tal decides to check, which is fine because Michael could have an ace. He could easily have one. It doesn't make sense to bet the ace, even if he doesn't. Then it doesn't make sense to bet the ace.
I kind of like it too because he's shown that he's aggressive and it kind of induces a bluff, a wider bluff.
I mean, it does. It could. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
It did.
It did, but it I mean, it did do it to try and induce a bluff here. Basically, it doesn't make sense to bet. So not betting should be the default position because Tal has he has bluff catcher. That's what he has.
Right.
So it makes no sense betting your bluff catcher on the river.
I hear you.
You should bet and then decide if you are faced with a bet, try and bluff it.
Or maybe it'd be better for me to say I like the call on the when he bets. I like that she calls. It's a tough call, but she made it, or he made it.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So the bet. I don't know. Kind of would off. I would like, let's say you have an ace. Okay, so why would you bet so big, really? Like I would try and get some value, right? So let's say I had an ace 10. So I bet a queen 5 deuce. Someone calls, I say, oh god damn it, and 9 on the turn. I say fuck it, just check it down. Ace on the river. I said, oh good, I can get some value. How much would I'm gonna bet 50? Okay, doesn't make sense. The other guy just called once on the flop and then checked it down. Why would you bet 50? Only because you're bluffing. So it's like super fishy move. Anyway, yeah. So Tal decides to call. I think it was a good call. Okay. So let's do a quick one. Okay. Just to make it, I really want to show you just the type of hands I open from the button, and from the small blind as well. I really hope you can save it. Something like that. Yeah, that makes sense. Queen 6, Queen 5. Yeah. All right. So you see that's about that's like 40% of hands, as you can see. Okay, and it's pretty loose, kind of range. I mean, like many people would just see like something like a King 7, or I don't know, Queen 6 suited or something, and say, oh, whatever, and just throw it away. And some people would say, oh, then I'm going to open my Jack 5 offsuit. But I think that's a pretty decent conservative type of range you could open from the button of a small blind. I mean, I mean, anyone doesn't know what chart means. By the way, I haven't actually introduced this chart yet. I hope, but you're familiar with it. Yeah, Jack says that he was a loose open, he's trying to steal above the blinds. Yeah, but I understand that, but you should, even if you say I'm just going to give up if someone calls me, it's still, you should still like limit yourself to the amount of how low are you willing to go. 7-5 offsuit is here, so like it's definitely this green zone over here. You say everything here on the bottom. That's what I call the trash zone. Okay, so I don't ever show up in a hand with a trashy hand unless I was on the big blind and someone limped or something. Okay, it's like you're never going to catch me with like a Jack 6 offsuit or something like that in a hand where I voluntarily actually put money and showed up with the Jack 6 offsuit or 7-5 offsuit or whatever. But yeah, so everything blue here is everything marked in blue is the hands I would recommend opening from the button of the small blind. Okay, if it wasn't clear, but like everything on the top right is like the suited hands. If it says S is for suited and O is for offsuit, and like the middle diagonal is over pocket pairs, pocket deuces, pocket fours, pocket sevens, etc. Okay, so I guess that was it. Do you have any questions you want to ask before we end the lesson? No, nothing. Okay, cool. Jack says that it all makes sense. Okay, so well, hopefully, yeah. Cool. Max says he did a lot, and hopefully we can, some of you, by the way, have been. I did run a course, about 6 or 7 lessons. Couple of it was about 2 months ago, I think, which is